Hi, I'm Degé Coutee with Patient Advocacy Network at CannabisSavesLives.org, and this is your weekly edition of the Compassion Flower Report. This week I've got a couple stories for you out of Malaysia. We're going to talk about also a couple patient-centered stories about pain, anxiety, and pregnancy. So let's dive into what's going on in Malaysia this week. Both of these stories come from an online paper called The Star Online, and both these stories, like I said, are out of Malaysia. Pro-medical marijuana group holds candlelight vigil. This comes from Petaling Jaya. It says a group of protesters held a candlelight vigil outside the Kajang prison on Friday, September 21st, in conjunction with the International Day of Peace in support of the decriminalization of medical marijuana. Prison guards observed the peaceful demonstration that lasted until 9:15 p.m. The issue of harsh penalties for possession of medical marijuana has been in the limelight due to the death sentence handed down to Mohammed Lukman last month. Lukman, a 29-year-old father of one, was arrested in December of 2015 for the possession of 1.3 liters of cannabis oil, 279 grams of compressed cannabis, and 1.4 kilograms of a substance containing THC. On August 30th this year, Lukman was handed a death sentence under the Dangerous Drugs Act of 1952 by the Shah Aman High Court. So they're recently, the second story goes into Mohammed Lukman a little further, but yeah, there are still places in the world where you can get a death sentence for possession of cannabis. And what I've read a little bit further about this gentleman is he was producing cannabis oil to give to other patients in Malaysia, kind of doing that wonderful compassionate caregiver work. So right on the heels of the story regarding this protest comes a second story out of Petaling Jaya. It says Malaya in talks to become first in Asia to allow medical marijuana. Public outrage over a death penalty handed down to a 29-year-old man is spurring Malaysia to start talks to legalize marijuana for medical use, racing to become the first Asian country to do so. For now, the focus is on overturning the death sentence handed last month to a man convicted of possessing, processing, and distributing medicinal cannabis oil. In Southeast Asia, drug trafficking is often punishable by death, with little distinction made between marijuana and hard drugs like cocaine. Indonesia has faced global censure for executing drug traffickers, while Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, drug war has left at least 4,000 dead since he took office. Still, Malaysia isn't alone into looking into the medical marijuana industry. Thailand's government pharmaceutical organization, a unit of the Ministry of Public Health, is trying to persuade its military government to approve a study of the drug so it can market it for medical use. The challenge for Malaysia, which still imposes capital punishment for sub-drug trafficking offenses, is how to draft new laws that are specific enough to differentiate marijuana for medical as opposed to recreational use and other uses. So we've got a 29-year-old man who has been he took that risk. I mean, it reminds me of what went on here in the United States 25 years ago, before we had Proposition 215 in California. It's why we had Proposition 215, because there were people like Lukman who were either making brownies or making oil or just providing free cannabis to people who were really, really sick. And there was the potential of a really high price for that. And that sparked the Compassionate Use Act and what we saw happen. So good luck to Malaysia. There is a group called Malaysia Medical Marijuana. They're available on Facebook. I started following them to keep up with this effort, and I'm sure this will be our international story that we'll keep up with for a while and see how Malaysia moves on. Our next story is out of Minnesota. This is another case of anecdotal evidence coming directly from patients, as patients talking about their medical cannabis use. This comes, like I said, out of Minnesota from a paper called the Grand Forks Herald. And it says, Amy Weiser Wilson has suffered for years from chronic pain so severe that some days she couldn't get out of bed. On those days, even contact with her bed sheets was painful. Weiser Wilson, whose ailments include fibromyalgia and osteoarthritis, now can take a capsule of medical marijuana before bed, and most mornings wakes up pain-free. Occasionally, when she has a flare-up, she uses a vaporized form of the medication which relieves her pain. And this is her quote, "While pain may not be visible, it can absolutely be deadly," she said. Despite her pain, she refused to take narcotic painkillers. 2 friends died from opioids, one by accidental overdose and the other by suicide. For Mike Walters, medical marijuana relieves pain from neuropathy and also calms his anxiety and post-traumatic stress. Less than a drop of the medicine is enough to keep his anxiety at bay. You name it, I was just hair triggered, he says. I didn't enjoy life at all. I'm sure what he's talking about that anxiety and that post-traumatic stress that very easily triggered. Cannabis is very calming for that. Both Weiser Wilson and Walters are veterans. Both are among more than 17,000 patients in Minnesota who are certified to obtain medical marijuana. Intractable pain and post-traumatic stress are 2 of the most common conditions treated by medical marijuana in Minnesota. So in the state of Minnesota, pain and PTSD are the 2 main ailments that they are finding that patients are using cannabis for treatment. 42% of Minnesota patients taking medical cannabis for intractable pain reported a pain reduction of at least 30%. Minnesota health officials found earlier this year. A 2016 Minnesota study found 90% of patients reported mild to significant benefits and 20% reported side effects. Medical cannabis has been effective in helping patients to avoid opioids or to wean off opioids, which are highly addictive and not effective for chronic pain. I was really glad to hear that in this article. I'm reading just sections of this article. There are many more quotes, and there's a doctor that's quoted as well. He gets into talking about the side effects and when people use cannabis with other medications. But I wanted to give you the substance of it that really was the patient-centered part. And that's something that I think needs to be addressed more and more often, is that opiates and opioids are not effective for ongoing chronic pain. They were medications that were produced specifically for immediate pain. You know, you just had a knee replacement. For the next 3 to 5 days, maybe you're going to be on these strong meds. Or my mom, I remember being on a morphine drip for a few days right after major heart surgery. So these are drugs that were intended to be used for just a few days at a time period for major surgeries. They were not meant to be part of a chronic pain regimen. And I don't think that there are any medications, pharmaceutical medications, that are meant for that ongoing pain. For anyone out there who is a chronic pain patient, you probably remember the days, and I'm sure they're not completely over, where ongoing chronic pain was considered something in your head. If you went to the doctor and tried to tell them, my knee is constantly hurting, or like myself, I've got a spinal condition in my C-spine, my neck hurts, I've got ringing in the ears, I've got it's just in your head, it's okay. And they thought maybe some of us were just seeking medications. And I, like this woman in here who said that she refused to use narcotic painkillers. I was the same way. I'd go to the doctor and talk to him about the tingling in my hand and the ringing in the ears and sometimes the spots in the eyes, all from what was going on from the flattened nerves in my neck. And you'd get that eye roll from the doctor and they're like, well, what do you want? And it's like, well, I'd really like to know what's causing the pain, if there's a way to, fix this or work with it, or is there's something I can do to help it. And doctors were pretty astounded that I never asked for pain pills. And then, eventually I came clean and said, I'm using hashish and it's working wonderfully. So again, a story out of Minnesota, anecdotal evidence about how cannabis is working for patients there for pain and for PTSD. This other story, the one about pregnancy, comes from a website called Phone Mantra. And it looks like a site where they're kind of a clearinghouse for a lot of different stories about health and technology. And this story, real brief, it just quotes some research out of JAMA, the Journal of the American Medical Association. And this says, survey predicts more women are using marijuana during pregnancy. I know that this is a huge taboo subject. Let me just get through some of the findings of this research. We'll talk about that a little bit. A research letter published in JAMA on December 26 reported that 7.1% of pregnant women in California used marijuana while pregnant in 2016. Teens and young adults reported higher use of marijuana compared to women over 24 years old. So they're making that distinction between women in their late teens and early 20s who become pregnant and women who are over 24 years old. Cannabis use in teens under 18 increased from 12.5% to 21.8%, while consumption in girls 18 to 24 increased from 9.8 to 19%. Another study published in January confirmed the uptrend nationally. Pregnant women who reported to have used marijuana jumped from 2.37% to 3.85% from 2002 to 2014. Again, 2002 to 2014. That's the time span they're looking at for more of a national look at women using cannabis while pregnant. The analysis was conducted on women age 18 to 44 throughout the United States. So much larger sample size, larger geographic area. You can kind of see the difference between what they're making between young women in California, young women, and a broader age spectrum of women throughout the country. The usage spike in marijuana can be attributed to easier access, reduced stigma, and the supposed health benefits of the plant. The American Academy of Pediatrics and the American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists dissuade using marijuana during pregnancy because of its links to other developmental difficulties. However, there are insufficient data on the connection between marijuana use and fetal development. Insignificant data on the connection between marijuana use and fetal development. So, like I said, this is a topic that's incredibly taboo. There's a doctor in my family. I can guarantee you he would never suggest that a pregnant woman use cannabis during her pregnancy. However, I have known dozens, maybe even in the low hundreds of women who have told me that they used cannabis in their pregnancy, primarily the first trimester. Why? Morning sickness. Women who said that they got up in the morning and smoked or vaporized just a small amount of cannabis in the morning when they woke up made all the difference in their day. No vomiting, actually getting an appetite, being able to hold down water, have a little breakfast. For any woman who has had horrible morning sickness knows what I'm talking about. And I'll just interject a quick story here. When I served on the board of Indiana Normal, there was one of our other fellow board members, and we were getting ready to start our meeting, and we hadn't called it to order yet. And before we did, she got up and walked around the room, and she had some papers in her hand, and she's starting to just hand these papers around the room to different people and just ask people to pass them around the room. And what she was sharing with us were the report cards of her two teenage children. I think she had children who were in high school, I think talking 14, 15, 16, son and daughter, kind of in that age range. And she wanted us to see their report cards, and they were astounding. I mean, great grades, civil engagement, just great, kids just doing a lot of good things in school. And she said that she was showing us this because of the stigma of using cannabis while one is pregnant, which she said she did with both of her children for the same reason, morning sickness, nausea. And she goes, and I just wanted you all to see how smart and how involved and engaged my children are. That was all. And that was just her little interjection that she wanted to share with us before we started the meeting that day. And like I said, I know plenty of women. I know it's a very taboo subject. Doctors don't like it. Women, I don't, who's going to argue with a pregnant woman having nausea, right? So I think it's one of those things where there still has to be a lot of more research done, and there probably is some safe threshold, some blend of the right cannabinoids that are good. I mean, we all know that there are cannabinoids in the breast milk, and we know that we have a human endocannabinoid system. So it would seem that the lowest dose possible that a woman could use while pregnant to help her with the nausea makes a lot of sense. So I'll be interested to see how that particular topic progresses over the years to come. Quick follow-up story before we wrap up. This story, I believe, was in the first episode I did, because that one was around back to school time. And it says, judge rules Santa Rosa girl taking medical cannabis for seizures can attend public school. So there was a temporary ruling by a judge that allowed this young girl to go to school. We do have a bill that's going through California to allow this throughout the state. And this comes from the Press Democrat. Tears streamed down Janet Adams' face Friday when her attorney delivered the news by phone that her 5-year-old daughter, Brooke, can continue attending public elementary school and bring with her the cannabis-based medications she needs. The move came after state administrative law judge Chris Marson ruled Brooke, who suffers frequent seizures because of a rare form of epilepsy, may continue to attend Village Elementary School in Santa Rosa with her emergency medicine. Marson's decisions overruled the Rincon Valley Union School District's stance that allowing her on campus and the school bus violated state and federal laws barring medical marijuana on school grounds. I was so overwhelmed with emotion and joy that I don't have to fight anymore after a battle of over 2 years, said Janet Adams. I'm grateful that we had this ruling so she can just go to school like any other child, and we don't have to keep pushing to get what she needs. Under prior temporary order from Marson, Brooke has been attending kindergarten at Village Elementary since August, accompanied by a nurse who administers the THC oil that helps with her seizures. In that time, Brooke has had at least 3 seizures on school grounds, according to her mother, but the cannabis treatment prevented prolonged convulsions and averted calls for an ambulance for emergency help. District officials were still reviewing the decision Friday, but said in an initial statement they were glad to have some legal clarity brought to the issue and were not planning a legal challenge, though they still have the chance to appeal the ruling. Janet Adams is relieved she doesn't have to have a conversation with her daughter that she can no longer attend school, where she said teachers tell her Brooke is progressing every day, especially with her speech. She had previously prepped Brooke for such an outcome. So here you've got a kindergartner who is clearly enjoying school, at least from some of the previous stories. This young girl, Brooke, she's engaged, she's meeting other children, she's with a teacher, she's enjoying the school environment. And this mother had to prepare her daughter for the fact that the school might tell her to go home. And so that hasn't happened. So that's really good news. I think this is the first case of its type in the country. And so, again, so goes California, so goes the world. So let's see more children be able to have their emergency medical cannabis with them when they go to school. This particular type of seizure disorder is incredibly harmful, harsh, and a lot of times people with this disorder don't live past their late teens, early 20s. So it's going to be remarkable to see children, babies even, that start to show symptoms of this form of epilepsy be able to use it. And let's see, not only does it increase the quality of life, and let's see that it maybe prolongs their life as well. So those are the stories I wanted to bring to you this week. I really appreciate you tuning in and getting involved with the Compassion Flower Report. All of these stories and many more are available on our Twitter, and that's at Pan for Compassion. I will include that link below this video. There's many more news stories we didn't cover here. You can sign up for email updates at cannabissaveslives.org, and we will send you a link to a complete news digest where you can look at all of these stories. I want to thank you very much for watching. I ask you to please donate. Patient Advocacy Network is a charitable 501c3 organization. Your contributions are always tax deductible. Visit our website at cannabissaveslives.org. Click the donate button. Become a monthly sponsor in any amount that's right for you. We greatly appreciate it. Please subscribe, like, and share this video. And until next week, I'm Degé Coutee with the Patient Advocacy Network at cannabissaveslives.org.